benefiting from the presence of Parliamentary Secretary. I would invite her to get her views on this entire subject. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Shabnam and Dr. Nadeemul Haq. I would say our pride is now in PIDE, and it's good to see that such workshops and such seminars are taking place on the public sector development program, which is very relevant to public sector, and obviously when it comes to public sector, that means public is involved. As a politician, I will give my sense. For politicians, public's priority is on top, and whatever I've seen, sorry I've joined late because I had some other meetings going on in my office. I think there are many gaps which have been identified, rightly pointed out, and I think we should take this worthy feedback and inculcate in the policy making and in the formulation of PSDP. It's about time that we have to, exercise what is being exercised in the world, in the developed world. We have to just get rid of all the obsolete practices which are not working for us anymore when it comes to PSDP and the allocations and the projects. To be specific, there is a political will to spend more, because up till now what the statistics are referring is that whatever we allocate in the government sector or in the public sector, in the past almost 18 to 22% maximum gets spent per year. So making different projects, showing them in the PSDP does not make any sense when it comes to public welfare and when it comes to actual development on ground. So now what our priority as a government is that whatever is allocated or whatever is shown in the PSDP book, the green book and then the pink book, which we keep for ourselves, I think Dr. Afzal would agree to it, it should actually be spent in the fiscal year for which the allocation is being made. And the other thing which was rightly pointed out by the gentleman and by Mr. Amir, that the gestation period of the project should remain to what is being written in the book, not that it should carry on with like for 15 years or 18 years, then it loses its main objective and it gets more expensive, and the relevance remains, the productivity becomes zero. There are different things which I wanted to mention, but I'm short of time because I'm a media person, have to represent my government on different channels. So there is a team which is waiting for me. But since we have three tier of governance, three tier of governments, and after 18th Amendment, NFC is relevant, and so is the PFC award. So I agree to the lady from the World Bank that it has to be a top-down approach, but I always believe as a researcher and a social scientist that the top-down approach always works when we have a bottom-up feedback as well. That we have to see our projects and our policies are actually translated on ground, and that can only be effective if our local government is spending and making good projects which are really close to the public on ground. For instance, if we are investing in that, here comes the SDGs. The first 6 and 7 SDGs are direct, and we have to improve the inter-government coordination when we are making PSDPs and ADPs, because and then the local government should be on board, because education, health, and there are several other things like water and sanitation which need to be addressed. If we address or we invest in the projects which are directly related to water and sanitation, trust me, we don't have to invest a lot in the health sector. So they are very much interlinked. SDG framework related to PSDP and ADP, and the inter-provincial coordination and inter-government coordination are the key factors, and plus the digitalization for the bottom-up approach. We have to identify the gaps, I think rightly pointed out and identified here in this forum, and then we have to do we have to use SDG 16 and 17 partnership and the legal framework. We have to identify the gaps and then address them equally. So as a government, we take this responsibility, and the feedback from this forum will be very, very precious for us. We will use it, we will inculcate it in the policies, and I hope we will get it through our representatives who are attending this session. I will not take more of your time because I know many of you are here since morning. Thank you so very much, and hope to see you all again. And thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for bringing such effective forums, and I think you will organize more of such seminars and workshops because we need, and you will also, you are one of our precious person who has been working here, who has served here, so your feedback is very important for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So as we conclude this session, I would just want to say that we take all this feedback very positively, and this helps us in improving our systems. But in my, I've been working with the government, the provincial PND, and now at the Planning Commission. I receive the PC1s, and sometimes when we review the PC1s, and it takes the sponsors up to 2 years, in my experience, to submit back with the 6-7 changes that we want them to make before we can actually move ahead with it. In the presentation which was just shown, I don't know how many by Dr. Afzal, the utilization rate which was depicted was 36%, which is actually for the up to February that he showed. So all this boils down to the limited capacities that we've had, the limited focus that we've had over these years into building institutions. So a lot of the problems that you see in the PSDP do stem from those limited capacities. We've had a project approach towards building these capacities rather than building systems and institutions to cater to that, and that is something which trickles down from the federal level down to the local level. So we have to bear that in mind, and I hope we will be taking a much more sustainable approach towards building systems and building institutions to help us address all of the challenges, I would say, that have been very rightly pointed out. Thank you so much. You've been great audience. Thank you.
We've come to the concluding session. I'll be very brief. I'll just quickly try and summarize the discussion, and please feel free to tell me where I've gone wrong. It's very hard to keep track of this wide-ranging discussion. I'll try and make it as specific as possible. I think there are 3 main themes that I'd like to push forward, and under those 3 themes we can kind of group things together. One is that everything that we do, whether it's projects, programs, policies, whatever, as the Deputy Chairman said, he had 6 Ps. So whatever the 6 Ps are, turned into 1 G, growth. And we've kind of forgotten the growth focus, so we must bring growth back into it. Yes, we are in an IMF austerity program, so somehow we have to bring growth within austerity, and I hope the World Bank will help us there, but unfortunately, growth has been forgotten in Pakistan for the last 40 years. We are focused on projects. Then today also the discussion, to my mind, was more focused on projects than it should have been, and we kind of forgot about the thing that Clelia used, which is portfolio of projects. We have a portfolio of projects. We should think of portfolio of projects. And then when the Deputy Chairman said that we must think of the 2 Ps that he mentioned, public investment for public goods and welfare eventually. So these items, I think, overarching themes that we should bring into our final report that we put together. The second thing that the main issue that we had was that we need to think of the 21st century. Lango made a very forceful push for digitization or technology. Yes, the 21st century is here, technology is here, we should learn to use it. But more than that, we, as everybody said, and as I think Alia kept pushing, we need a plan or a strategy or some framework. I mean, Clelia also mentioned that. Right now, we've got a project focus with no overarching theme or plan or whatever you might call it, growth strategy, whatever you might call it. That is very important. What are the central themes we are looking at? We have, as Clelia said, very important, more divisions than sectors. And our parliamentary secretary has left. I wish she would understand that, and the government would understand that. How many divisions do we need? But that's a separate point. That we'll take up in PFM when we do PFM. Right now, the point is, do we have a national strategy or a sectoral strategy? Too many people have lamented the fact that we don't even have a sectoral strategy. The question is, how do we go about making sectoral national strategy? Because otherwise we've got a collection of, sorry, we don't even have a collection of projects. We have projects, or sum of projects, which is not a collection of projects. A collection of projects is coherent, and we must have coherence. Within this, there were many points made about aligning the PSDP to growth policy, to sectoral plans, big plans that we have them. Then there was also a point made even by the Joint Chief Economist, which is important as itself, donor coordination. I mean, it is very interesting to hear that the Joint Chief Economist is saying that, hey, the plans are made by donors, not by us. So who is planning? That also needs to be thought through. We have too many projects, little policy, many projects, no programs. And as many people said, too long delays, cost overruns, many things. That is project focused, and we should talk about it. So the second major theme was projects, project appraisal. Cost benefit analysis, as I emphasized, many people emphasize, cost benefit analysis is flown out the window. While the US government is following cost benefit analysis, we have stopped doing cost benefit analysis, including the donors have stopped doing cost benefit analysis. We are just doing projects without any cost benefit analysis, with the result that most of the donor reports also show that their projects are not working very well. The PC process is good. The rules of business are there. The form filling is there. But nobody wants to follow the process. I mean, this begins from the top. Nobody wants to follow any process. Nobody likes any constraint. When I was deputy chair of the planning commission, I used to get calls from everybody. Forget the process. I'm in a rush. There's a crisis. Unfortunately, this country has had a crisis for 70 years and we can't get out of it. So that's important. The third major point that was made in terms of the projects was over-politicization of projects. And yes, we all know they're over-politicized. The reason you have a process and the reason you have a PFM law is to take the politics out of the business. That's why we recommended in our book that you must have a public investment law too. But we have to really think about how to depoliticize the projects for major bang for buck. So we must have more rules, more process, more PC, whatever things, not less. Digital can help, but I would remind you, at the end of the computer or the phone is a human being like me. And you may have whatever technology you have, but if the human being like me is old and retarded, hey, not going to happen, right? So ultimately it's all about people. So I like Ahmed's point about reversal of the brain drain. Unfortunately, we are pushing people out. I sign people's leave forms and exit forms every day. Many of the good people leave, we are left only with the whatever. So then, of course, there's the question of donors contractors, which the NLC Brigadier very nicely pointed out, and that, hey, people have a plethora of partners who they can't coordinate. And this brings me to the central point. Planning Commission's job is coordination. The whole government is a coordination game, as we call it in game theory. It's a coordination game. Whole governance is a coordination game. And there we fail miserably. We don't have a coordination game. We don't know how to play it, and we can't do it. We rely on hasty design. We have land issues. The general pointed out so many things. We have cash flow problems. As an NLC gentleman pointed out, we have 28 billion, they have a portfolio of 28 billion, and they rely on dribs and drabs of releases. That all comes from bad planning. Then I think Ahmed and many people made the point on mega projects. Yes, the mega projects are complex mechanisms. There's a guy in Oxford called Flyberg who does a lot of work on this. Mega projects are huge issues, and yes, the whole world has to contend with them. But that means we must have the capacity for project management. We don't even have the capacity to manage little projects, leave alone mega projects. So that's an issue. And then another large system of issues is assets. I'm glad we raised the assets in our book. A large part of that book is devoted to that. The World Bank lady also mentioned that. We do projects without creating assets. We do projects without realizing what we build. Case in point, as I gave you this morning, we have 200 universities but no education. We have 100 stadiums with no sports. We have so many things with no, we have on this Constitution Avenue, we have 6 auditoriums of no conferences. We have a convention center but no conventions. So yes, we create assets, madam, but we don't even think about managing or maintaining them, and that's a very important point. We have to think about assets and returns. We don't worry about returns. If we had a return on every project that we made, our growth rate would be 8%. यार वो लगा देना जरा जो मैंने slide बताई थी. I think our growth rate would be 8%. We have no growth rate. When I was in the planning commission, we did this. We don't need to do big ticket items. We don't even need projects. Sorry. We need quality reform in these 4 areas, and we'll get a growth rate of 8%. So I think that's a very important thing to think about. But the more important issue is that I think we should all take seriously, and we should all think about it. The HAG model, Abulak HAG model, Harvard Advisory Group model, was made in 1956. This is 2020. Are we going to continue with the same model of projects and aid and projects and aid and no programs, no growth, no productivity? I think the HAG model served its purpose. It gave us lots of roads, it gave us lots of energy, it gave us lots of infrastructure. I think we need to review and renew that model. I submit we should move to a results-based management system. I submit we should move, right now we've got an input-based system, they make the convention center, forget about it, they make a railway station, forget about it. We need to move to a results-based system. Clearly I mentioned asset register or whatever. Yes, we need to think about having something like that, or a balance sheet of the government, or asset management, or returns. We only worry about inputs, not results. So, and then as Asif Bajwa said, we need to think about who owns the projects. Is it the community? Is it citizen partnership? I worked with Islamabad. I've got a paper, PIDE working paper in Islamabad finances. And the curious thing is that Islamabad does not own its assets. I work with Lahore, LDA Lahore. I'm doing a conference with them on the 9th. LDA does not know its assets. So in this whole country, nobody knows their assets. I submit to you that all of you know your assets and you milk them for whatever they are worth. That's why you invest in bonds or stocks or land or whatever, right? We need to worry about national assets. National assets are dying and declining, and we don't worry about them. Then finally, related to this issue is the issue of how do we develop strategies, plans, which nobody really thinks about. We all think strategy plans should be made. Should they be made from outside this country as they are right now through consultants, or should they be made within the country? I'm giving you a plug for PID, but that means be upfront. Do we need research or not? We just did a book on research. Quite frankly, all the countries in the world today are competing on research. We have zero research in this country. The HEC, the fund that they have is 0.2% of GDP, which is almost next to nothing. Most of it is just overhead costs. So we have no money for research. How do we make public policy? We make public policy on the fly, or whatever the World Bank tells us or some donor tells us. We have no public policy. And as Amir mentioned, we have a huge brain drain problem. Are we going to tackle it or not? Because ultimately it's not technology. It's a person at the end of technology. And if you have both at the end of technology, you can put in whatever technology you like, the results will be the same. Because it's human beings who make results, technology doesn't make results. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is my very, very quick summary. Now, we'll have a quick round of comments, questions, so that I can add or delete from this. So please go ahead and say whatever you like for the next 5 minutes, and then we'll end it. Anybody, please. Are you too tired?
Sir, what are
Please identify yourself too.
Ayaz working in PIDE? Sir, what are the main determinants of the creative city?
We'll talk about that later. Let's talk about the PSDP right now. This summary that I gave.
So if I can just share a thought that when we talk about the political interference or political manipulations, I think that also has to be defined. What does it mean? Because everything has to be political in the sense that if it is good for a change for good, it has to be political. But what kind of politics is good and bad for planning process?
Good point.
Sir, this is Dr. Sir, Chief EAD. So my point is regarding your R&D and research. You rightly said that in case of the public, we be spending nothing, right, in the one hand. But on the other hand, if you look at the private sectors, so there are some private, private doesn't mean the private sectors, means the private individual, they are doing research, like PIDE, ARC, LUMS, and so many other. Sorry? No, it's not private, means individual, independently they are doing. So my question is how we translate, even though we have so many good results and good research, how we translate the research into policy? That's a very big gap between the translating in research into policy.
Dr. Nasser, just a brief that what we are missing in the entire discussion is the ownership of everything. Whenever I say something to anybody that it's your task, the reply is it's not my task. Someone has to do this. This is the key issue that we are facing over the last 70 years. And we are talking about the capacity issue over the last, and I'm just hurting that thing from the when I start this the economic. But how we can solve this capacity issue? Just talking about the capacity issue may not be the solution. So we have to put on the top of this entire discussion about these two things.
Anybody else, Ji?
Just a small
Go ahead.
reaction. You had talked about the growth, tension between growth and inflation. I think at some point that has to be mentioned, that we have been too preoccupied with the monetary aggregates of inflation and exchange rate, and we have to shift the focus towards growth. But PSDP is not the only vehicle for doing that, so there needs to be more thought in how to make this transformation from being just enamored by the financial indicators to more growth-oriented indicators. And also, I think there are certain themes that Pakistan is part of internationally. Climate change is one. We also need to, when we are talking of sectoral priorities or plans, we also need to see whether our PSDP portfolio is supporting and complementing our commitments to international, in the international scenario. Climate change, Pakistan has become a very important player in that field, and I think also we didn't really talk about, Ashraf Saab mentioned manufacturing, and we didn't really talk about small and medium enterprises, because I guess that was not the issue. But there is a lot of lip service paid to dynamizing the SME sector. Do we really see it in the PSDP? So this is what I meant. There is a disconnect between even what our growth-oriented claims are and what the SDP sort of conveys in terms of that matching.
Sir, can we add a point about the transparency or access to information related to the projects? Because often we can create pressure if we know what's happening around. For example, when I tried to get some data out of the system for the current ongoing projects, unfortunately the Planning Commission system didn't have the real-time data set, because it is only available with the finance. So being even government employee couldn't access to the right information.
Certainly, we used to have that on the Planning Commission website when I was here. We had weekly release data, but unfortunately it's taken off. I don't know why. Okay, fine. I think we'll reflect all these comments on in a final summary that you prepared. We'll send it to you. We'll put it on the IVD website, and we'll send it to the government. I'm very thankful to all of you. Thankful to my staff. Thankful to many people who made this conference, and especially our Planning Commission members over here, and the Parliamentary Secretary. So lots of people made this conference a success. We'll continue to do this. The job of PIDE really is to develop a debate and engage people. We'll continue to engage all of you. Please join us. Please come and help us. We need a lot more debate to understand things. We can't leave the debate only to donors. We must create the debate ourselves. Thank you very much. All the best.